Most of us would consider a life priceless, but a new law may set a dollar value that some feel could lead to neglect and irresponsibility from businesses. Better Nashville's Jennifer Herron is sitting down with our legal expert, Jim Higgins, to get some advice.
Yeah, most of us would agree that you can't put a price on your child, but there are instances where it really is kind of necessary, isn't it?
Well, that's the debate right now. The legislature is putting through some proposed legislation that will cap damages on cases, non-economic damages for death of a child, things like that. And one case that's recently brought this to light, and the impact of it, is there was a case in Jackson, Tennessee, tried last week, where a young toddler choked and died at a daycare. And the parents brought a lawsuit because they wanted to bring to light what had happened. And what they had found is, under the law, you're supposed to have a worker for every 6 kids. You're supposed to be around the children when they're eating. You're supposed to have the food in bite size. And apparently this daycare just did none of those things, and the child died. A jury gave them a $1.5 million verdict. And of course, the importance of that to those parents is not that they profited off of their tragic loss, but that they brought to attention that this was a tragedy that could have been avoided. And a jury said to those folks that your child had value. Now, under the new law, they would have been capped at $750,000. And it's just a little difficult to understand how you can say your kid's only worth this much or your mom's only worth this much. We've put such a stock in our jury to make those decisions. It's hard to see the legislature take that away.
And isn't it a matter of consequences? If they know, it's just a slap on the hand for the daycare, maybe they won't make the adjustments they necessarily need to?
Well, that's the debate. The legislators that are for this tort reform say that businesses need to know what their exposure is. And I think on the opposite side of that, we don't want them to know. It's as if, my kids know if they do something wrong, they're going to be in trouble. But I don't want them to know what it is. If they think, I only have to miss 30 minutes of TV, they may just go ahead and do it. So I think it's important that we leave that for the jury. And I don't want a specific number so some corporation can say, hey, it would cost us this much to make this product safer, or this much to hire sufficient and adequate staff. But if we don't, it only costs us X if we go to trial.
And one more important thing to keep in mind, there is a cap on the punitive damages as well?
Yes, under the proposed legislation, there's a cap of $500,000 on punitive damages, or double the compensatory. And, that's interesting because you look at it and you think, that's a lot of money. But it's all relative. A $1 billion corporation, that's nothing. So punitive damages are always assessed based upon profits people made off wrong conduct, how much money they have, things like that. So, for instance, in a case where you're hit by a drunk driver, under the law now, the damages you could get against that person are capped, whether it killed a family or whatever tragic thing happened. And again, the problem with that is every case is different. You can't just put a blanket number on every case. There are cases where $500,000 would be way too much and it shouldn't be applied, and there are cases where that is not near enough. And so it really has to be a case-by-case basis, and that's what the legislature has taken away.
Yeah, and punishment for a corporation or even like a daycare would be, I guess, financially, right?
It's the only way you can. I mean, you can't put a corporation in jail. It's not a real person. And corporations, that's their goal, is to make money. So the only way for them to reel them in sometimes, a bad corporation, the only way to reel in a bad corporation is to say, hey, if you do this illegal behavior, if you do this dangerous behavior, it's going to cost you financially. And that keeps them in check.
Now, is there a way that parents can become involved and help out with this process and maybe change things around?
Well, I think always the only way to change this or to impact it is to call your legislature. It is going through right now, and it's looking like, unless people say, hey, we don't want this, we want the ability to present our problems to a jury of our peers and not have the legislature tell that jury what to do. You got to call your representative and say, I'm either for it or against it, and why.
The Higgins Firm is serving Tennessee. Call them at 615-353-0930. For more information and a link to their website, go to betternashville.com.